Hey guys, welcome back to the C# Tower Defense series with Godot. Today we will actually look at the tower and how we can spend mana to build a tower. So this will take a lot of refactoring, so eventually this will take a few episodes. But first, before we actually start with this feature, what we're going to do is that we will change the behavior of the turret so that by default, when we create a turret object, it doesn't create a turret which throws projectiles and attacks. So here's the entire code we have created so far, and to be honest, we are not going to delete that. This will stay here. But what we will do is add a new layer of structure of the logic here to make it possible for the turret to have different states, sort of. So in order to represent those states, instead of going through a full state machine, which is kind of complex, we're going to talk about enums. So here we're going to create an enum, which is going to be a public enum, and I will name it towers. So we're going to have none, okay, equal to 0. And at the moment, we're just going to create the first tower, which is the yellow tower with the value 1. So this is just to kind of create a list of towers and using words that we as humans understand instead of just numbers, because the code is just going to interpret those 0, 1, etc, etc. We kind of, create this list for us. This enum here is just the declaration of the list. It's not really a value. So if we want this value to be stored by the tower, we actually need to create variable for this. So something in the line of public towers, we're using the enum as a type now. So we have the public towers and something like tower enum if we want to be super specific. Okay, so now on ready, what we're gonna do is actually have something in the line of tower enum is going to be initialized to towers.none. This is how we work with enums. You use the enum to call the enum class, sort of, not really class but list, and then you can decide to call on one of its objects, and it's going to translate this as an integer. Okay, so by default the tower is going to be none. So here, just to make it simple, we're going to remove the sprite right in this right here. We're going to remove this tower sprite. The reason for this is because by default, since the tower is none by default, we don't want a sprite of a tower in it. So now that we have a whole bunch of behaviors which are actually defining whether we can do things or not, so we're just going to make a simple check, something like if tower enum is equal to towers none, then we're going to return and make it so that it doesn't do anything on physics process. So here, let's say that, and just to be sure that the tower is correct, fully disabled, we're just gonna run the game and see if the tower is shooting or not. Okay, so the tower is not shooting, which is exactly what we wanted. So we're gonna close this. Now, basically what we want to do is to be able to create a tower by having an interaction with this tower placeholder here. Not placeholder, but tower structure. Because we have nothing to interact with it, so I'm just going to create a button, okay? A button which I'm going to position in the center here, so we're going to have -4, -4, and I'm going to stretch it like this. Wait, how? Yes, by using Shift and Alt, I can kind of, stretch this button. So now I'm just going to make it flat so that it has no visible thing, if you wish. And I'm gonna leave it here. Okay. So now we're ready to interact with this button. So this, let's rename that tower structure, or tower bottom is fine. And I will make it, we're gonna bind this with export. So here, node connections. I'm gonna make a new export button. Actually, I didn't put any public here. It's actually interesting. So what happened when you don't say that you want your variable to be public? I think it by default makes it private. But yeah, no problem. So here we have the tower button, and we're going to bind this right now. All right. Tower 2D, tower button goes here. Okay. Basically what we want to do is to actually allow this button to initialize the tower. So we're going to create a function which is going to be triggered when the button is pressed. So here we're going to have on tower button pressed. So on tower button pressed, we want to make, okay. So first, the very first thing I want to do is to make sure that this button only works when there is no tower in it. So here I'm going to go with an if statement, which says that if the tower enum is different than towers.none, which means that if there's a tower, I want to return and do nothing. In fact, just for the sake of testing what we're doing, we can make a print and say there is already a tower here. Right? That's nice. If we pass this, which means that the tower is actually equal to none. So what we want to do is initialize a yellow tower. So I'm going to create a function for this, which is public void initialize yellow tower. So initializing the tower here is basically allowing it to attack, setting a sprite, and eventually spending some mana to create this tower. So here, the first thing I'm going to do is actually try to spend the mana. So I'm going to create a boolean, which is going to be something like error. The reason why I create a variable here, just to show you how it works, you could literally be just making it a condition with an if statement, but here I'm just gonna retrieve the error information of the mana consumption method. So here I'm gonna say mana.consume, and I'm gonna consume 100 mana. Maybe 200, so that we have a few mana spare mana. And now, based on the result of this error, we will actually proceed or not. So the name isn't actually very, it's not really telling, because it's more like a success. So if there's not a success, then we want to return and do nothing. Now, eventually, we may want to check something, because we don't know, sometimes interactions can be quick, and before we actually spend the mana to build a tower, we want to make sure that this tower isn't already a tower. So here we're going to make the exact same check. If tower enum is actually different than towers.none, we're going to return. And we're going to say there's already a tower here as well. And just, I'm going to precise that this is initialize method. Okay, so now we are pretty sure that there's no tower, and we actually have consumed the mana. So first thing, tower enum is going to be equal to towers.yellow. First thing. Second thing is I actually want to apply the sprite to the sprite area. So I'm going to go back to Godot, and I'm going to do two things. So first, I'm going to go in my textures and grab the UID of my tower yellow. And then I'm going to go in my script and create a new export public Sprite 2D tower sprite property. Right, so I'm gonna go back to Godot, build and assign this. So here tower sprite goes there. Save that. And now I'm actually ready to store the texture in a variable. So here we're gonna have a texture 2D, and that's gonna be the yellow tower texture. So this yellow tower texture, I will actually load it when the node is getting ready. In fact, can I make this static? I could make this static because we only need to load it once. So I'm gonna do that, you know. Here, this is gonna be a public static sprite 2D. No, not this one, sorry. Public static texture 2D, because we only need it once for every tower. So here, yellow tower texture will actually load the resource. So we're gonna have the resource loader. We're gonna load a texture 2D. And this is gonna be the UID that we copied like a few minutes ago. Okay, so we do have the yellow tower texture now. Which means that if we go down to our initialize yellow tower, we're able to say that the tower sprite dot texture actually is going to be equal to the yellow tower texture. Okay, and we don't know. We can say that eventually we want to assign the stats of this tower. So here, maybe, just maybe, we're going to repeat the stats we have. So the damage is going to be 3, and I mean, we have a few things to do, like the damage. So what is the damage? I think it's the damage here. Damage is going to be equal to, let's do something stronger, like 4, so that 3 hits get 1 enemy. So damage is 4. As for the cooldown, I think we're gonna keep this one, right? So 0.5. So right here, we should have the timer somewhere. Let's see, do we have the timer? Yes, timer. The timer.wait time is gonna be equal to 0.5. So honestly, we should be good now. Let's make sure that the button we have created is properly bound. So let's see, tower button pressed plus equal on tower button pressed. We should be good, really. Like, is this called in the button press? No, it's not. So on tower button pressed, if there's no tower in it, we want to initialize yellow tower. Okay. So I'm quite curious how this is gonna react now. Here we just click on there, and here we have a tower being created with a way stronger tower than we had before, and we actually spent 200 mana to create this, which is pretty good. Now let's see. That's one thing you may have noticed. The button got the focus, and actually it is something we don't want here. So the tower 2D button, I'm just gonna remove the focus on it. So here the focus is none. All right. There's another thing which is quite interesting, the radius. So the radius at the moment, we're gonna ignore that. We will do this in a future video. So what I will be doing is just duplicate this tower in the world. So right here we have one tower, and I will duplicate it and have another one here. That's great. And maybe like even like another one right here. This one could actually go at a point which is slightly less strong in a sense. Okay, so we have 3 towers, and you know, we can kind of remove the visible collision shapes when we run the game. And here we probably ready to run that. Let's see. We can build a tower here and here. And now we have 2 towers ready to attack. Is it actually enough to get the first wave? Yeah, actually it is. And there we go. We have actually won against the first wave. Okay, so it's kind of a interesting thing. The exercise for this video is going to be quite different than the subject we're actually dealing with, and I'm going to move this tower here because it's kind of in the path of the header. I don't know, I could around there. The exercise here is actually make it so that when an enemy is actually beaten by a turret, it does generate mana. Okay, now let's see how we can achieve that. It's actually quite simple. We just want to go in our enemy 2D thing, and when the health is going down, so here current health is 0, update health label, and Q3. So instead of Q3ing the enemy here, we're gonna have the death thing. So public void death or die or kill. Let's have kill. So we replace that with kill. All right. And what do? Well, we go in our mana and we create something like 15 mana. Another important thing, of course, is that we did remove the Q3 instruction from this, which is still important when we kill the enemy, right? We want the enemy to be destroyed and removed from the tree, so we're gonna Q3 that. Okay, so now we can try the game, and I guess that if we actually have 10 enemies for 15 mana each, we should arrive with more mana and be able to create a third tower. And there we go. We are actually able to buy towers simply by clicking on them. So it's not the best way for a full game to handle tower purchase, but eventually later what we will be seeing is how clicking on the tower is opening a menu to choose what tower you want to purchase instead of instantly buying a yellow tower. So anyway, I will leave you here, you take care, and I will see you in the next content.